All right, last week we talked about how ratios are a comparison between two things. When we went through this word problem, we talked about, okay, the ratio from length to width is 4 to 3. But that was the reduced ratio. We had to figure out what was the old length and width before we reduced. So in the picture, we put in a 4x, a 3x, all the way around. Came back to, okay, if the perimeter is 84, if I started adding up those terms, what would that x have to be? I believe on this one, was it 6? Was x 6? Look back at this example. X was 6. So that means length to width was 4 times 6 and 3 times 6, becoming 24 and 18. So the length was 24 feet, 18 feet was the width. Let's talk about today. So last week, Friday, we talked about ratios. Today we're going to get into what proportions are. Proportions is a combination of two ratios. So a proportion is an equation that states two ratios are equal. Anytime we want to solve a proportion, we're going to cross multiply. You should have two blanks in your guided notes. Cross multiply. That's what we're going to do. Cross multiply, then we will divide. So let's go to the first example. 3 to x equals 6 to 8. When I cross multiply, I'm going to take 3 times 8. Some of you may already be able to mentally process that. And then I'm going to get x times 6, but I'm going to write that as 6x. My x will always be written after the number. So yeah, 24 equals 6x. Divide both sides by 6. And we're looking at 4. 4 would be in that x spot. 5 to 3 equals 15 to y. No matter where the variable's at, we can still cross multiply and divide. So 5y equals 3 times 15. 5y equals 45. And divide both sides by 5. That missing number is 9. All right, so we're going to skip 10, 11, 12, 13. We're going to go into day 2. This is where we were supposed to start today. Essential question today was, how can ratios and proportions be used for patterns? Here we go. Let's talk about rates. This is where we're going to talk gas prices, miles per gallon or dollars per gallon and so on. A rate is a special ratio in which the two terms are in different units. Typical rates we hear are like 12 inches to a foot, 5,280 feet to a mile, 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. Those are rates. So unit rate is how many units of the first type quantity corresponding to one of the second type, like $2.49 per gallon. That's per 1 gallon. That's a unit rate. Every pencil costs $2. That's a unit rate. $2 per pencil. These are some common unit rates. So if we had $1,200 in 3 weeks, we're going to write this, and wait, if you're going to express it as a unit rate, that means we have to divide both numbers by one of the numbers. I'm either going to divide both of these numbers by 1,200, or I'm going to divide both of these numbers by 3. Most likely, I'm going to pick the smaller number to divide by. So I'm going to divide both numbers by 3. There's our unit rate. $400 in a week. We're going to do one more of these. 60 miles in 30 minutes. I'm either going to divide by the 60 on both of them or the 30 on both of them. I'm typically going to always divide by the smaller. We would go 2 miles in 1 minute. That seems really fast. Because there's 60 minutes in an hour, so that's 120 miles in an hour. I guess you could have also gone that route and said 120 miles in an hour. That would still be a unit rate that fits this situation. All right, so let's skip to the next page. We're going to go straight into word problems. This is what you're going to see on your homework. I need to go back a slide because an equation that states two ratios are equal is called a proportion. Let's put on that line a proportion. We're going to set up proportions in this next example. So if you have 300 flights in 2 days and X amount of flights in 7 days, we're going to set up a proportion. We're going to go flights to days. In the first fraction, I'm going to have 300 to 2 days. Notice how these two relate to each other. And then I have X amount of flights in 7 days. Now that I have a proportion, I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So, wait a second. If I get 1,050, what is that in relation of? So going back to the context of the problem, I could do, if I'm a pilot, or if I'm some sort of air traffic controller, whatever. If I'm dealing with flights in days, 1,050 flights in 7 days. I also want you to realize what word it pertains to. That's what I'm going to look for in the homework classwork that we're going to do today. One more. 4 miles in 22 minutes, 8 miles in Y minutes. Miles compared to minutes. So 4 miles in 22 minutes, 8 miles in Y minutes, and now we're ready to cross multiply. All right, gonna pass out homework.